Hi everyone, my name is Benita Fieser. I am teaching middle school this year. I've only taught middle school one other year. I've taught a lot of university, 15 years of that, and then I taught AP English, dual credit English, and honors English for a few years up until now. I have moved to this middle school, which is a parochial school. They have not had a full time English teacher for 3 years, and this school is filled with mostly ELL students who speak Spanish, and they are a couple of at least 2 grades behind most of them in their English skills. So I have got a lot of work to do this coming year, and they have a lot of work to do as well. The eighth graders are going to be transferring into Bishop Carroll High School. It is a very data driven, reading driven, and they're going to be under a lot of pressure next year. So I'm really looking forward to helping them, and we're gonna hit the ground running. So that's why I've chosen increasing comprehension, because when we do that, they increase fluency. Um, I've been meeting a lot of them. I've been working on moving my classroom over from Bishop Carroll to St. Pat's since school got out, and most of them are in summer school. So the first day of school, I love this exercise. It's a first day of school getting to know you. And I've already been showing it to some students, and they've been, surprisingly, they've been filling it out already and bringing it back to me. And so we started to talk, and I'm like, what are you the most excited about? And what's your greatest fear? And they've been saying to me that their greatest fear is making an F in English this year. And I've asked them, what do you want the most out of this coming school year? And across the board, what they want is to be ready to go to Bishop Carroll Catholic High School a year from now in August. So their words tell me that they're very committed. I will see how they do on day 2 when we really hit the ground running. So there's 2 ways we can play this. But traditionally, I could say, look, I made a promise to you, I intend to keep it, and miles to go before we sleep. Here are your literary terms for the week, because we're going to start out with short stories. And we're going to be reading a lot of novels and reading a lot of short stories this year. And I've already told them that. So I could give them some Frayer models and some literary terms and say, here's your first 7 vocabulary words, and you can work in groups today, and they would be running out the door. Because when they see the books against the walls, I've got the bookcases filled, and they see all the novels, and I say to them, we are going to be reading between 30 and 40 books during the course of this coming year. You should see their faces. It's adorable. So we could start out that way, and then I could launch right into, this is how we analyze a short story step by step, and that's about what it would look like. And not just these students, it's just the days of lecturing and passive learning. I believe those days are over. They've been over even with my university students. There's a better way to do this, and a more active way. So that's not the way we're going to start out our year. I want them actively involved, and I want them to learn to take ownership of their education as much as they can. If they will be active, they will do much better. On the other hand, it was a very interesting article that we read this week on the rural classrooms, because no one was wanting to take ownership of these students, and the students weren't wanting to either. I have always considered my classroom as my room, my rules, but also my responsibility. And so the way we're going to do this is I'm going to first begin with what do we already know? And from there, how can we build some excitement? I like to use multimedia, especially with ELL students, because they are comfortable with what they already know. We will read aloud in small groups, and I came across a book called Building Thinking Classrooms, and it was really designed for mathematics students. But it just kind of hit me where I am. I love it, and this is the way I run my classrooms, and I think it's really in keeping with what we are learning this week in terms of fix-up strategies. So I'm going to talk about it in this presentation because it just works. So my students work in groups of 3 or 4. I rotate those groups at least every 2 weeks. I don't want them to get too comfortable, and I do this with a computer program, and it's all random. But no one is a leader of the group for more than 1 day, so leaders change every day. In these reading classrooms, they will read 2 paragraphs out loud, so then that will switch. So if we were doing a short story, then the reader would read 2 paragraphs and it would rotate. The next person would be writing down any words that he or she doesn't recognize and building them a vocabulary list. The third person would be doing a check on what just happened in this 2 paragraphs. And the fourth person would have a graphic organizer that would be writing down, okay, we just moved from this room to this room, or this just happened, or this conflict just developed. So that would be what would be going on once we were reading the story. I love graphic organizers. I've got a whole wall on one of my side walls that I have folios, and once I introduce any handout or graphic organizer, it goes on that wall. That way, if a student needs it, or if they feel like they need it, they just walk over and get it. If I feel like they need it because we're talking and I see a gap, we walk over there together. They don't always know what they need, of course. So especially the first quarter, I'm walking over there with them. So this is one of my favorites, but this is the end game. That's when they know how to really analyze an entire short story. But talking to them about how wonderful a story is kind of like me saying, oh, this song is just amazing. And they're sitting there looking at me, because describing a story to them when they don't have the skill set is like me saying, this song is amazing, and then me saying, can you name that tune? So I like to start out with a really unconventional and a story that they're going to fall in love with for whatever reason. So the first story I'm going to do with these students, because middle school students love scary stories, is going to be Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. And I doubt that these students will have read this story. It's possible, but I doubt it. So I'm going to start out by just asking them, how many of you have heard of Edgar Allan Poe? And I will throw a picture of him. And then I'm going to share with them a little bit about his history and what has happened to him, the life he's had, and how troubled he was. And then I'm going to say, we are going to read a very scary, very weird story, and the name of it is The Telltale Heart. and the sentencing is sometimes complex in this story. So I want to make it a little bit easier for you. So before we do that, let's talk about the 15 literary terms that are in there. But I don't want to make this too hard, so why don't we have Bart Simpson help you with it? Because we've all heard about The Simpsons, right? So now immediately they're going to be relieved. And there's a very cute Simpsons episode where Bart tries to help his sister Lisa with her science project, and of course things go awry. And it's about the telltale heart. She's done a diorama on it. So I just turn on the projector and we watch this going on. And it really cuts it down on the tension for them of what are we getting ready to do? And it's going to be over my head and I can't do it. Because even though we have not read The Telltale Heart, they get the basics of the story from this really cute situation that occurs. So, following that, we talk a little bit about the plot line, the conflicts, what Lisa goes through during this science project that she does, and about the plot line of The Telltale Heart. So they really know the punchline before they really read the story. Then we go into, as you are reading the story, and you are going into this group of 4 students, you're going to make a list of any words that you don't recognize. Because what you're going to do is you're going to make a vocabulary list of words for the group next to you. So this is going to be their vocabulary test for this Friday. They are hunting for words at that point because it's not their list of vocabulary words, it's the next group. And what we end up doing on Fridays most of the time is having relay races using the vocabulary words. We'll come up with 10 or 12 of the ones that the class votes on, and we'll do that on Friday just before the relay races, and then they will run up to the board, and the side of the room that does the best gets rewarded, and I bring candy bars or cupcakes or whatever. So they are all in on really having a good, strong knowledge base of their vocabulary words. They will have done the Freier model. I am moving towards patterns of power this year. I'm really bored with the Freier model. I just don't have it nailed enough at this point to talk about it, but I'm going to be moving to patterns of power. I just heard too many good things about it. It is a much more explicit way of teaching vocabulary. So more on that maybe in another week. Once they have read the story, and we've talked about it a little bit, they will immediately go with their group of 4 to the whiteboards, and they will start mapping out. This is what happened. This is the characterization. This is where the plot gets really tense. This is the conflict. And they begin, they'll have 4 or 5 different graphic organizers that they'll be working from. This one is for characterization. And they'll be kind of drawing those out on big poster pages on the board, which I'll have magnets on those, or they can draw on the board if they want to. But what they're working on is doing an Avid one-pager. And this first one, they'll do it together. They don't have to each do one. What I'm kind of under the table doing with them is they are learning plot development, setting, conflict, characterization, dynamic characters, static characters. They're learning all of these elements of fiction by doing these elements of fiction. And it's really beautiful to watch. So they're just going through these one by one. They're talking to each other. They're teaching each other. I'm walking around the room helping them. And as they do this, you'll hear them say, "Wow, didn't you love it when this character said this?" And they have already, as they were reading, they've written down important quotes because they had that in front of them and they were watching for it, and I've told them what to watch for. The students, as they were passing around these sheets of paper, they filled out every single thing that happened one by one, so they have the entire plot diagram filled out. And all they have to do as the story ends is say, okay, what was the point of that? And if they don't get the theme, we're talking about that at the end. Now, I did this with my ninth grade class last year. I did teach one section of freshmen last year at Bishop Carroll, and we were having a Halloween party, and so we did it around Halloween. And this is one of their one-pagers that they finished, and I just thought it was beautiful. They'd been in class October. It was almost 8 weeks, I think. But they were all creating amazing one-pagers. Within 2 weeks, when we have parent-teacher walkthroughs, these students will have read 10 short stories or 10 articles and short stories. They will be short stories, 4 pages or so. They will be doing really nice one-pagers. They'll be on posters and they'll be hanging up and down the halls, and my room's walls will be filled. But the key point is they will understand the elements of fiction and be able to talk about them, and there will not have been stress involved. So this fix-up strategy it utilizes prior knowledge, multimedia, group helping each other. So the comprehension goes way up when there's a lot of dialogue and conversation between students. And that's really what the main purpose of this fix-up strategy is we start at the beginning, what do you know? And then how can we build on that? And then how can we use graphic organizers to make it fun? And how can we do it together as a group? I hope you have enjoyed this. I enjoyed putting it together, and look forward to talking to you next week. Bye.